All right, welcome everybody to the Orchid Binder Make and Take. At the end of this session, you are going to at least have begun the damn binder. So Michelle, take it away. Thank you for being here.
Here's the binder.
Do it. I'm
Your
going to mute
completed
myself.
progress. So I have multiple children, so I put their names in the front and on the side, but my orchid child picked his out of. And then on the inside is all the tabs. So the first tab I have is points of contact. So this is super helpful for all of those release of information forms that you have to fill out for like everyone. So I have all of his therapists, his like normal doctors, his psychiatrist, developmental pediatrician, and then like the care coordinators for like Strong Start and when he had HSCSN. So it was just like all the people in one spot, which made it nice. I also had like the care coordinators like manager in there. So like when you had issues with your care coordinator, I knew who to call and I didn't have to keep looking it up. And then, like I said, anytime, like you have to fill out those forms, but like every year, and like you have to put all the different therapists on everyone else's forms. So it just made it easier for that, because stuff like their fax numbers and addresses, like, I have them in my phone, but I find it easier to just like when I'm typing it up to just have it all in one place versus like trying to scroll through my phone. So that's my first tab. And there's a good template for that in the first 100 days on Autism Speaks. That's where I got it from. So my oldest has ASD. And so when he first got diagnosed, like 4.5 years ago, that's where I went, and they had this first 100 days thing. And I was like, oh, this sounds great. Tell me what to do. And in there it had a lot of different tips and stuff, but one of them was this, and I can send it to Jen and Gabrielle, just the
I was just going to look it up right now, see if you could.
Form, because it just made it easier. It was already like a format, and I was like, oh, this is great, and I can just type it all in. So I recommend that, and like I said, I can send it to you guys so that you can send it out to anyone who would like it. And then the next tab I have is the evaluations tab, because our kids get like thousands of them. And so this is where I do like the sub tabs. So I think that you guys would like to do like have the flags. This is where I put the flags of like what evaluation is, or like where it is. So like the Georgetown pediatrician, he has a WIPC, so I put that in there, like Strong Start, Children's, ABA, OT, like speech, like so I like subdivide the larger tab. So it makes it easier for me to find stuff, and then I order it with like the oldest in the back and the newest one in the front. So anytime I get a new one, I like have to take out the tab and then put it back. But it makes it easier because then your latest evaluations are there. And so if I go to like a different doctor, I bring this with me and I'm like, what would you like? Like if they haven't already asked for like specific things, I'm like, here's what I have, but you don't all like necessarily need all these different pieces. So I have everything in soft copy. So I have a like soft copy version of the binder that essentially has folders for each of the tabs, and then subfolders for like, here's all my Georgetown evaluations. And I also have OCD, so this comes in handy.
Can you, sorry, can you just, what's the second tab? Did you say within, I had to run to get a pen.
Oh, sorry. So I have points of contact is first, and then evaluations.
Evaluations, okay.
Is a second one. And I just put these in orders of like how I've needed them. Like the order probably doesn't, it doesn't really matter. Like whatever you find most useful, this is just how, like, I'm just another parent. Like I'm a super type A.
You're a very organized other parent, so we highly value that. Yeah.
People have said this is helpful. So, so yeah, so that's my second tab is like all of the history and the of his evaluations. And then my next tab is his IFSP. And he had an individual learning plan at his school. So I have that as well. One tip on the IFSP that I didn't realize, and I think it's the same with IEPs, is everything is repeated. So I kept putting in like I got the first one, and then you get like 6 months later, you get a new one. I was putting it in, but it was all the same information. And so my binder is getting like so fat. And I was like, what? And then I was like, wait, this is super repetitive. It has all this stuff from 6 months ago and now. So that one is like a find and replace. So I take out the old one and put in the new one. But it took me probably longer than it should have to realize that I was just repeating information.
Yeah, I'm going to pause here for a second because there may be people watching who don't know the acronyms. So we'll talk about.
Oh, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. This is a perfect time to mention it because unless you have it, then you don't know. So IFSP is the Individualized Family Service Plan. That's for birth to 3. This is true nationwide. IEP is for 3 and above. Is that true? 3, 4 and above. Which means individualized education plan.
Yeah, one is just when you transition out of the early intervention into kind of the school-based early intervention support is usually when you have this. So if you're kind of developing this stuff post age, 3, then, you'll just start with whatever, wherever you are. So you wouldn't have an IFSP then. The IFSP is for the 0 to 3.
Yeah. And then sort of the light version of the IEP is a 504 plan. So a 504 is accommodations, which means there's a diagnosis that's impacting learning, but the student doesn't require treatment at school. So it does mean that they might have preferential seating, that they have to be seated in the first row or the last row or on the left side, or it means that they might get their schoolwork highlighted. It might mean that they can wear an FM system so that they can hear the directions more clearly because there's a lot of noise at school. It's any number of accommodations, and those are listed in the document. The important thing to know about IFSP, IEP, and 504s is they are legal documents. And so once you sign them, they are required and they have the backup of a federal law. And so when you're not getting your accommodations or when you're not getting your services, you have recourse, which is messy and horrible and you don't want to do it, but you do have the backing of you have legal standing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And an individualized learning plan is like something they might do at a private school.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So my son went to an independent preschool. And so he had an individual learning plan, which is like IEP light.
It's not legal.
And it's not legal.
It's something they agree to do because they're nice and they think.
And they want everyone to succeed. Right. Yeah.
That's why you're paying good.
Right.
So that's another one that I have in here. And even though like my son is 6 now and in kindergarten, I keep his IFSP in here to like kind of remember the issues that he had, because like he had so many issues with his IFSP, and a lot of them he's like, gotten coping strategies and like, much better with now, and he doesn't have very many, adaptations required anymore in school. But I like having the history, especially like, we're taking him to like a brand new evaluation, and I was like, it's good to have that like background. And if you have to fill out a new intake form anywhere, which I recently experienced, I hadn't done an intake form in a really long time, and I was like, oh man, I forgot I needed to know, when he crawled and when he walked and all the like those initial milestones that I hadn't thought about in years. But I had them in here from another one, so it was helpful. So after the whatever your school documents are or early intervention documents, I have medical, because this is another one that like I have his birth report in here, because when you fill out those initial forms, they want like his APGAR scores. And the last one actually wanted the length I was in labor. And I was like, I don't know, like 2 days. But it's in this form. And I was like, oh, look at that, 26 hours and 2 minutes. Thank you for being so precise. So there's just a bunch of stuff in here that they will like randomly ask for. So I keep like his birth one in there. And then I just keep, we go to Georgetown. So I get like these summaries of like that have his key statistics. And like he struggled with weight. So I like to keep just like the cover sheet of those to like see where he was like in the percentiles. Because for me, that's like helpful. And it's one of the things that I always have to like bring up as a concern. Like he was born huge and then like fell off the charts and no one knew why because he was perfectly healthy. And
So
so
you're saying you save all the well baby
yeah.
cover sheets that they gave you. Okay.
Yeah. So all is well that had his like, you know, all like
The
his
length and the weight
length,
and the,
weight, head circumference.
yeah.
That one I've never used,
Recommendations,
but
yeah.
like, and just his percentages. And then like, I think that's really all I've ever used on them because the well child visits don't really say much, but I like having like that history. And then I also have all of like the DC Health school forms in there.
medical tab.
Yeah. So I again have like the flags of like, here's like well child visits, here's like DC Health forms, and then his dental forms as well, which these I haven't put in yet because they're his latest ones, but so his dental forms. And that one just makes it easier for school because even though you upload them, sometimes they're like, we were missing his shot record. And I'm like, what? Like I've given you that like 100 times. But then I can like easily, I'm like, oh no, I have it.
And do you generally put them just from like oldest to like newest is at the top and you kind of lump them by like, here's the school forms, here's the dental forms, kind of all under the medical tab, right?
Yeah, so in the medical tab, yeah, so like kind of like I did with the flags on the evaluations, I have a flag for like, you know, just like doctor's visits, then DC Health forms, and then dental forms. And then it just like, I don't usually have to reference those as much, but I just like having it all.
Okay,
in one
pause.
place.
Amy, how you doing?
Oh, I'm I'm hanging in there. I don't have a lot of this stuff. Like and we switched insurance. So I'm gonna have to like go back to Kaiser and try and figure it out. Yeah. So,
Okay, that's all right. So you got like a to-do list there for,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And today you could make your tabs.
Mhm.
Yeah,
right?
and you could
do
just
the
start with like
placeholders.
what you do have now, you know,
Right.
like your latest stuff for everything, and then go back to like the historical things.
Mhm.
So would you put like your prescriptions in there then too, or?
Yeah, so my kids aren't medically complex, but yeah, if that applies to you, I would, because it just is nice to have it all in one spot.
And actually, as you were saying that, I was like, I would put that right behind the points of contact.
Okay.
And
That's,
Yeah.
I mean, again, like everybody's organization is going to feel different, but that feels like, here's the current list of providers and here's a list of their medication and here's the history, you know, most updated, whatever.
Yeah, or it could be, so this is how brains work differently, right? I would be like, oh, I would just put it at the front of my medical. Like that would be like the first page under medical. Because, you know, I guess I consider, even if it's, you know, sort of psychotropic, drugs for brain functionality, it would be good to have that, you know, at the ready and easily accessible.
And then my other question is, we were in early intervention and then we graduated and I thought we were going on to normal life, so I didn't save anything. Like, do they still have that stuff? Like, can I go back to them and be like, give me records from when she was in early intervention?
Yeah,
I would
they're
think so.
legally required to keep it until she turns 21.
Okay, that's good.
oh
to know.
wow, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, so you can reach out to whoever the case manager was,
Okay.
you know, if they're still there or whatever, but you should be able to get that.
Yeah.
And that's good to keep as a history, you know, given.
Yeah, there's a lot of info in here that I kind of forgot about for a while.
Mhm.
Because like you, Amy, I was like, oh, I don't need to deal with this anymore. And then
Right.
Just
That's what
kidding.
they told me. They were like, goodbye, have a good life. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I live in Maryland now, but I started in DC. And so we had HSCSN. So I also have an HSCSN tab.
Okay,
And
That
that's
pause.
healthcare for children with special needs. And that is a Medicaid funded program that you can access in DC and, you know, Michelle, is it 16 other
there's-
states or something like that?
There's
17,
like 12 states that have it,
Okay, 12 states.
but there's a webinar on that.
There was a webinar on that, but unfortunately in Maryland, you live in Maryland, Amy, right?
Yeah, I live in Virginia.
Oh, Virginia also
Virginia
not,
doesn't
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, wah wah. Yeah, it's not available in Virginia or Maryland, but in DC it is. There are different ways to access Medicaid funding in Virginia, but it's harder.
Yeah, somebody
so-
just told me this weekend I should be on Medicaid, and I was like,
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm doing, and it was very overwhelming because they were like, "Why aren't you connected to the NIH? Why aren't you doing?" Blah. I was like, "Nobody told me to connect to the NIH."
yeah. I mean, so basically what just like the short version of what HSCSN is that it just gets you, it's a waiver, it comes through a waiver program called the Katie Beckett waiver that gets certain diagnoses, make it applicable and accessible, and certain do not. So like ADHD, it wouldn't work for it, but autism does, and another thing. It's basically like something that's not going to change year to year, is debilitating, and can impact various spheres of life, and gets you access to Medicaid support. So like for those of us who have primary insurance, it's our secondary insurance, but for many people, it's also their primary insurance.
So we had HSCSN, so there's a bunch of paperwork you have to fill out like annually, and I keep all of that in there. And I also keep all of the correspondence I get from them that says like, you've been approved for another year, just because it's a government program and I like don't trust that everything will stay. So I'm like, I want this document that says, no, you gave it to him. And then I just keep the things from the prior years, the documentation, because it just makes it easier. You have to renew every year. And so it makes it easier to renew. And like one of the tips I have in that presentation is to ghostwrite letters. And so if you have last year's, it makes it way easier to ghostwrite your renewal forms. And then I just have a note.
Ghostwrite. Like, what do you mean by that? Ghostwrite?
Oh, so
Like say the template, right?
So I bring a folder with me and I have in it like all of the Katie Beckett forms, and I have filled them all out. And so then I put little sign here tabs for the doctor to sign.
Okay.
And so once like they'll like look through it and then be like, oh yeah, this is great. Like I don't have anything to add. And like I've had doctors just sign it like in the appointment so I can walk out with it and I don't have to like deal with, your doctor's admin and calling and being like, no, I really need it now. I've just found it kind of streamlines it, and you can't really do it for like the first year, but for your renewals, it's also repetitive. Because like with my son, like his diagnosis isn't changing, his like therapies weren't changing, so I could kind of write the same thing. And so then, I would just bring this with me. And I also had, in case they didn't like that, I had like the blank versions of the forms, but I've never had a doctor like not like it, but just in case. And so that just makes it easier. And then I have it all filled out and I can just scan it and send it to like my care manager when I get home from that appointment, and it makes it easier. But that's what like ghostwriting is. So I literally write the letter for them and then print it out. And I'm like, here, I just need your signature. And so then the last section I have is just notes. And I use that I don't use it as much anymore, but like in the beginning when I had no idea what I was doing and nothing that was no idea what was going on, like I actually still have this in here. The talk to me guide that our like speech therapist gave me in the very beginning. And I just have notes on like, you know, questions I asked, like what more could we be doing, like things like this, and like tips and stuff that, and things that they were like, okay, like this has to happen by this date. Because a lot of the like legal forms, like in early intervention and stuff, like they have deadlines. So I was like, oh, you have to do that by when? What was that date? So it would remind me to like, and put it in my calendar and then like check like, oh, have I gotten it? If I haven't, like then follow up. So yeah, so that's my binder. And I bring it with me to all of his like specialist appointments. And everyone's usually like, whoa. And like I said, I'm like, you know, if they haven't specifically asked for things, I'm like, I have everything here in soft copy. Like, what do you want? I'm happy to send it to you. Or like he had to get his hearing tested like way back in the beginning. Apparently that's like a one and done thing because I don't have any concerns about his hearing, but like everyone always wants it. So I just like pop out that sheet and like hand it to them and then they copy it and then give it back to me and I put it back in the binder. So things like that it's just easy to be like, here, copy it and then give it back to me. I've just found that super helpful. And then, so I have 3 children my oldest is my most complex. He's got the bigger binder. My middle child has a more narrow binder. And then what I do is they each have a folder. So when I get stuff that I haven't filed yet, I just like put it into their folder and then like periodically go through and empty their folder, which I haven't done in a while for my middle son because he hasn't really needed anything. But so each of them has a folder and then
Like the holding place is really important as an organizational tool for someone who is organizationally challenged. I'm really into this concept. Yeah, that's a really great idea. So that there's clear, like, where do I put this stuff? You know, and so that's the thing I think that for so many of us gets in the way of organizing because you've just like, you get it and you're just like, I'm just going to put it in that pile. And that pile also has like, I don't know, grocery lists or like, you know, random mail. And so it gets, you know, buried. So yeah.
So when I come home from an appointment or like get something, I put it in that folder and then I'm like, well, at least I know it's halfway there. And if I need it, at least I have a pile versus like, oh no, where did I put that in, like your point, Jen, like in my mail and this and that. And then my youngest, who really has no issues, he just has a folder and all this stuff just goes in his folder. And it's his folder from Sibley that they gave me when he was born. I was like, oh, perfect. It already has like his first immunization records and stuff. And so for him, I just put his stuff in there. Just in case, I think, because you probably don't need this for a typically developing child, but he's my first. So he just gets a folder because the other 2 have them. And I'm like, just in case anyone needs anything. And sometimes it comes in handy when I'm just curious, like how tall he is or, you know, stuff like that. Yeah, so.
I love it. Okay, so that's like the high level.
Yeah.
I have been taking notes. So we're going to provide with this video, provide like a little handout with that printed information. But the next piece of this is we're going to get to doing. And part of the reason we wanted to do this is so that people would, and if you're watching the recording, hopefully you will be doing this also, is take this time to sit down with your supplies. Jen, you've got yours. There you go. And create.
I made my tabs as we were talking.
So this is the portion of the program where you get some company and some accountability about doing the thing. So,
and just a note on binders. It was funny because I actually had randomly like 2. One, I sort of emptied my wedding binder, which was kind of funny. I was like, I don't really need these hairstyles anymore. So anyway, and like the flower arrangements.
Can we see them now?
They were very pretty, I will say. But so I have 2 binders of different sizes, and I think I was like, I'm gonna bring them both. I'm not sure how much, and I have these like 2 gigantic, so like, slightly different size. My guess is I'm gonna need the larger one for Max, just because he's got a lot. He's already 9, he's almost 10. Like there's just, and he's ongoing with all this stuff that we're doing. And then, I have, so you can do a 3-hole punch, or these are the just the clear pages that sheet protectors that I'm just lazy, so I kind of tend to use those instead of 3-hole punching. And then I just brought like all my file folders of stuff. They're semi-organized, I will say, but not like in a way that is, it's not right at the fingertips in the way that like a binder would be. And I have like tabs and, that kind of stuff. So.
And I have a 3-hole punch. I also have laminating sheets. I highly recommend these. This is totally now off topic. But okay. They're like big stickers, so you don't need a big laminating machine. But if you need something kept, you just peel the sticker off, and then I recommend using cardstock because it makes it easier because they're thick. And you put it in, and then you use a second one and peel it and put it on the back. And then it laminates it without having to laminate. And you can just get them off Amazon, and they're just these self-adhesive laminating sheets.
This is what I call master's level work right there. Like knowing about that, knowing about Velcro, knowing about cardstock. Like this is yeah.
And then when you have this, so then you can put like your sticky Velcro tabs. So if you make like, oh my gosh, we had so many like charts and stuff for him when he was younger. And so then you could like stick them to everything and then peel them off. And the cardstock and laminating just made them last so much longer. Because a lot of things, it was like schedules, and he liked to pull them off when he was finished. And so I used to just do it with like cardstock, but then they would get all bent and stuff. And then I started laminating them, and it made them last a lot longer.
And actually the sticky, we'll talk about this at the end of the month, but the sticky plastic means that you don't have to pay attention to how you're cutting it. Because when you laminate something, it seals to the plastic, but not to the paper. And so you have to leave like a little border and then it's sharp and you get paper cuts. So.
I also have a paper cutter that makes it easier.
Yes. Yes. No, but these are the things.
Yeah.
Label maker, also an amazing tool.
Yeah.
Don't get
Love
me
my
started.
label maker.
But this is like a super easy one. It's really small.
That's fantastic.
And again, I got it off Amazon, but then you can just.
We're going to put a supply list with this.
I can send you links.
Yeah.
Oh, please do.
Yeah, that'd be
seriously.
great.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I'm such a nerd.
The other thing that I was thinking about, Michelle, was when you were talking about all those charts and things, one thing that I was thinking about, that would be really cool to have another tab on here, maybe right before notes or maybe after notes, that could be like charts that we've used, something that would fit in there, right? Or even a picture of a chart that we've used with him. So we just have like footprints of things that have been effective. Or if like, I feel like, okay, I'm done with it, but like, let me just, I don't know, maybe it's helpful to keep it like, so that could be another space for useful, charts and routine things and, whatever it is that, or even like for us, we have a whole separate container of, I have like one of those like magazine, like those paperboard magazine holders where we keep all of Max's social stories. Cause there would be like too many to put in here. But, those could also be, sort of organized by like a folder within that of like trips, social stories around vacations, like social stories around like events, or just like regular day-to-day life, So that's another thought that I was having, just about kind of organizing some of the supporting things that we all use and have used.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
All right. Let's get
What
to
about
making.
the report cards? Do you keep all that in there? Like report cards or anything?
Yes. So I keep that in where I have like the IFSPs and like ILP stuff, because now that's kind of like what I get is like his report card. So I lump those together. But that may not be applicable because he doesn't have like an IEP right now in his school. So that's kind of the only reporting I get. But you probably could put that in a separate tab too if you have a continual like IEP document or something similar to that, and then have another tab for report cards, because there's a lot of good information in
Mhm.
those about more current performance and actual performance in the classroom that like I have no clue about other than in those reports. Especially now since we can't go in anywhere.
Yeah. I like that. I'm gonna add that into my tab and just write school reports on the bottom. Okay. But it does sort of make sense to put that in with the IEPs and the ILPs because it all relates.
And to your point, Dan, like that's how I think, like in primary categories and then subcategories. So.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Okay. Okay. Cool. All right, I'm gonna get started here. I'm excited.
And if you don't have flags, you can also use sticky notes and just cut them. I have done this when I've run out of tabs. And I just
Oh,
cut
that's good.
notes into tabs
Mhm.
for the for like the flags for the subcategory stuff.
That's a good hack too.
Yeah.
All right,
And
I'm
those
gonna
flags
get-
can be wicked expensive. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's too cheap.
Yeah. The other thing that could be good to work on too is just even working on that point of contact list. So, that takes time to put together. Did you said 100 days, right? Was the one that had the,
Yeah, let me, so it's on my other computer, but I will, I can log in and get that and email it to you guys.
that'd be great. And then we can maybe send it or, all right, I'm gonna go get some flags.
Yeah. I'm gonna get some too. Yeah.
Can't find it, so I'm gonna look and see if I.
So this is interesting. It's just interesting as I'm doing it, like stuff that's coming up for me. So I have like, so, full disclosure, I had an organizer help me because I'm really unorganized. And so we have like within, like Max, I have a Max therapy folder that's very thick. And of course, like I want to, if it's something I need to be kind of taking with me somewhere, then I need to figure out how to put some stuff in there. But I have like a whole folder of like his, history with ABA. And so I'm going through it and I'm trying to like organize it into, so that would be like I would make like a subcategory of ABA support or ABA records within evaluations. And kind of thinking about like, how do I want to organize it? I'm sort of semi-organizing it by years. And then there's some stuff that I don't know that I, need to have, like, I just like ripped off. I'm going to recycle like the overview of functional assessment procedures. Like, I don't need that. So I'm going to recycle a few things. It is sort of a good process. It just makes you go through.
Yeah, when I was doing this, prepping for this and like Michael or his next evaluation, I was like, oh, I really don't need some of this stuff anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Then I'm like, this is an ABA. Why is this in this folder? Like, this is a different thing. I don't know why this is here. Yeah, so you could lump stuff like, like OT info could be in, one subcategory in evaluations and
Oh,
speed.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
We did get an OT referral. I asked them and they were just like, here you go. It was just like you said, so.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm so glad. Yeah, they're just like, okay, that sounds great. If you think that's a good idea, then we.
Yeah, they were just like, here you go, so.
But it does, like, what's interesting to me about that is it really does signal, that the parents have to know what to ask for. And if you don't know what to ask for, then you don't know. And nobody else is, it's not that nobody's going to help you. It's just that you are uniquely positioned in the center of this circle of services for your child. And I mean, whatever, that's why Jen and I are doing what we're doing here. But it's both aggravating and gratifying to know that you're in control, right? Yeah, like the cavalry's not coming unless you call them and say,
They're
hey, I
speaking
need you
my
here
language
now.
right now. Yes, because we have a genetic diagnosis, and then this weekend somebody was like, I can't believe you're not connected to the NIH. You should have been connected to the NIH 18 months when she was diagnosed. Well, nobody told me to go to the NIH. I didn't know that was a thing I could do. And they were like, you could have been getting all these free services. Well, that would have been nice. Somebody told me that,
Right.
And then people always tell me to like, because she's adopted. They're like, you're supposed to get special services because she's adopted. Well, half of those are only if it was foster to adopt, which bothers me to no end because we have a lot of the same issues, but because it was a private adoption, we don't always qualify. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, right. Well, good. So on your to-do list is reach out to NIH, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
And in my folder, I just have, so we're very early in this process, but I'm putting in a whole bunch of stuff that's like, I just save everything that comes home that says like, she couldn't do this. And then I scan it and I send it to our neuropsych. And I'm like, here's something else she couldn't do. So that he has all that info.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it's like a process too of like save everything and then, oh, if I don't need it, I can take it out.
Right.
But I'm on like the err on the side of caution. Like I kept everything in the beginning. Like I said, all the different IFSP forms, even though they were repetitive.
Mhm.
But
What's interesting about this binder is this is like the macro view, right? This is the 30,000 feet view. And especially the way you've done it, Michelle, which is genius, you know, like here's the point of contact, here's all the documents, like you've got this historical and current record of your child's sort of profile. And what it's not, and part of me just always wants to jump in here and say, what it's not is a measure of how they're doing every day. And so what we don't want to do is get into like, well, it says here in the binder that, you know, they're not supposed to be able to do X, Y, Z, but they can, right? So it's like this interesting mix of kind of micro and macro level information. And this is definitely the macro level. And then the day-to-day, like the therapy notes and that kind of thing, those are micro level information that tell us like, okay, today we learned how to do this. Do you have that somewhere, Michelle? I'm curious, like therapy documents.
yeah, I just keep those on my computer though.
Okay.
I don't print those out.
Okay. Yeah.
Although I have a binder for Thomas, because at the end of all those speech sessions, I get like a handwritten thing.
Mhm.
So I kept those for him.
Do you put them in his big binder or in a speech therapy binder?
He has a separate speech therapy binder.
Mhm.
Especially when he was getting it at school, back when you could do that. I had the binder in his backpack, so his speech therapist could put the new one like in there, and then it was all just always in one place. So on his speech days, I put it in his backpack and I went to school, and she would put the new one just like inside, you know, and then when he got home, I would review it and then put it in, like hole punch it and everything.
Just organize it also. I don't know if this is whatever, this is just my brain, but so this is like Max's initial evaluation for like the ABA. I'm just putting a tab like on the front of my little thing, just so I'm like, when I flip through it, in my ABA pile, I can just see that. So just thought, in case that's helpful for anybody. No idea if it is, but.
I finally remembered what I named the document. Okay, so Jen and Gabrielle, I just
Yeah.
sent you the,
Oh, fantastic.
I
Okay.
cleared out all of my photos. So if you don't have a PDF editor, which is why it was on my work computer, because I can type on it. You can do it like handwritten or just like use that as a template to make in Word or something. But because I have a PDF editor on my work computer, I do it there.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome.
And if you have other categories, like feel free to edit the top. I just had like his, you know, his therapists and medical, and like that's how it made sense in my head to split them out. But however it works for you.
So good. No, I think this is going to be super helpful for people, honestly. Like this is just, here's how I did it. And then you can see like, I'm having ideas one way, Jen's like, and this is how it works for me. Like, but once you see the template, I'm a person who has a hard time creating something from scratch. But if I see how someone else does it, then I'm like, oh, okay. And here's how it could work for me. So I so appreciate you being here, Michelle. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know this is really going to be good for people.
I'm happy to do what I can. I'm gonna mute because I'm gonna start flipping stuff through my binder because I was like, oh, I have stuff that I haven't filed yet, so might as well do it now.
Just need you all to see the thickness of this. This is double-sided, double-sided. This was the neuropsych.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so when I went to this meeting, they gave me this. This is all abbreviations I'm supposed to know. This is 4 pages long. And then these are all the definitions I should know before I go into an IEP meeting. This document's about 40 pages long. And they're like, that's the bare minimum you need to know. And then you have to read all these other, I've got a whole entire bag full of stuff to read and understand. And if you don't understand it, you get put on the wrong track and then your child doesn't go to college. And I was like,
Yeah, no. This is like, yeah, in terms of the track stuff, and I know I said this too in the email, like she's young, she's 6, like don't worry about like diploma track yet. And really, here's the thing, the little like secret about IEPs is that you as a parent have the right to disagree with and not sign off on whatever is recommended and say, no, she's going to be diploma track and like, period, she can do it. We'll figure it out, like done. And then they have to actually take the parent, like preference is weighted, like, I hate to use the word trumps, but it trumps the, it overshadows the school positions on things.
The way they explained it was there's accommodations and there's modifications, and the modification takes the curriculum down a level. And if at any point you accept a modification, you can't take the SOLs. And if you don't take the SOLs, you're not on track for a standard diploma. You are going to get the alternative diploma, which you can't even use to go to community college.
So they can do you can again disagree with that and say, no, we will have SOLs on there, and
Yeah.
you can have modifications for testing, right? Like extended time, if you call, you know what I mean, on a
Well,
504.
Is it an accommodation or a modification? Because this is what they kept stressing, was you can accept accommodations, but once you accept a modification, you're now not on track to go to college. And they said that like over and over again.
Yeah, obviously they're trying to not discourage you from taking modifications.
Right.
I'm not sure why, and I'm not sure what the angle is exactly. That's when you would want to talk to someone who, like, you know,
System.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Gabrielle, you're muted, but I see you just put something in the chat.
Understood.org.
Yeah.
I literally just Googled accommodations versus modifications. So they have, and I love understood.org. If you
Mhm.
bookmark it, do you go on there?
I've not seen it yet.
Oh, it's great.
It's a really amazing resource. They have very plain language. They have just all of that. So, okay. So let's see. Modifications. I don't really see how legally they could track. I'm reading this at the same time. They don't always have to be formalized. Sometimes teachers can provide support on their own, informal supports. Yeah, I don't really think that they have legal standing to exclude.
Yeah, I can't find the thing they gave me, but
Okay.
oh, it is critical decision points for families with disabilities.
This is all from the school system?
This is all from the school system.
Yeah, and so while you're in there, raise holy hell about their process. My goodness. As if you
So,
have time.
It's really infuriating when they single side all these things.
yeah. Here it is. I'm going to read you this. This is what they told me. Okay.
Yeah.
And they have this in bold and like italicized, and they're like, this is, you know,
Okay.
it is absolutely critical that parents understand that agreeing to modifications of a child's curriculum means that their child will not be receiving the same instructional content as his peers. This means that the child will not be adequately prepared to take standardized assessments such as the SOL that lead to verified credits. Without verified credits, the child will be unable to earn a standard or an advanced studies diploma.
At what age?
From kindergarten on. If you modify the curriculum, if you ever agree in a meeting to modify the curriculum, you are now not going to college. This is in essence what I was told.
That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, they can modify the curriculum. I mean,
Well,
Yeah.
but they're talking about like the legal definition of modification. versus
it depends on what they mean by that, right? I mean, I
Okay,
think
they
that,
have a definition over here. Do you want me to read it to you? Okay, so it says modifications require that children with disabilities perform objectives that are different from those of the rest of the class. The content or task may be reduced in depth or complexity. Then it says, remember, if your child is on a modified curriculum, he's very unlikely to obtain a standard or advanced diploma, limiting post-secondary and employment options.
Okay,
so I just want to say that it says very unlikely.
Okay, well, they were in.
You know what I mean? It doesn't say like will not.
Right, but when they were talking, they were like, well, not, you know?
my guess is
Yeah.
it's a pain in the ass
Mm-hmm,
and expensive
mm-hmm.
for the school and the teachers to agree, to have to comply with modifications.
Okay,
That's my guess. It's administratively painful for them.
yeah.
And so they want to discourage as many people from doing it as possible. And maybe, given that set of circumstances, you don't want to go down the modifications path. And there's a case to be made for, can you inch right up to the accommodations line, right up to the modifications line without tripping into what's called a modification, right? There are plenty of accommodations
Okay,
that can be made. We're talking about, right, larger print, more time, special like seating for taking tests, for example. Like you are allowed to take the test in a room full of people. You have to take the test one-on-one with a teacher.
Right.
The test items can be read to her. Like there are many accommodations
Mhm.
that we can make. And then without tripping into the modification
Okay.
category. So that's one thing. Then the other thing is, and so we can sort of hold off on that as long as possible
Mhm.
while we see she's 6, for God's sakes.
Right.
We don't know if
I
she's
know.
graduating from high school. We don't know if she's going to high school. Like, we don't know if she's going to middle school right now.
I know. I was like, I
So-
can't let her stressing me out like this.
Yeah. So the other piece of this is this, because from the school system's perspective, right, they're required to abide by the laws, number one, which is what we were talking about before, but they're also required to keep a certain academic standing. And so
Mhm.
when they have students who are exempt from the SOLs,
Mhm.
that plays on that whole business. So it has implications for funding, it has implications for all kinds of other things that I don't actually understand. But so when you have a mellow attitude about those standard of learning tests and you don't care what she gets on them, which presumably you don't, and you just tell her, like, you're going to go do this stupid test, it doesn't matter, don't worry about it, it's fine, right?
Mhm.
Because that's all that state requirement stuff.
Mhm.
That's total bullshit. It's not designed for education. It's designed to check a box.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with your daughter going to take a test that she knows doesn't mean anything about her,
Right.
even if it's hard and long and painful and you say, yeah, that sucked, sorry,
Yeah.
right? There's nothing lost
Yeah.
if we're not making it mean something that it doesn't. How does
Yeah.
that play for you?
Yeah, that feels a lot better because like they just got me really upset coming out of this meeting. And the other thing they were saying was like basically like the IEP team has final decision and you as the parent are part of that team, but you don't have final decision. So even things like, is she in a self-contained classroom? Is she in the general, like, I don't get to make that decision. And it just felt like I'm supposed to hand my child over to the state and be like, good luck, you know? And it was very, yeah.
I think it's a bit of a shock and awe
Yeah.
in order to get compliance from you.
Okay.
So you don't play that game.
Okay. Yeah.
You stick to
we
your
don't even-
guns.
Yeah. We don't even know what her diagnosis is yet because we're only halfway through a neuropsych. What we have found out so far is he said there are significant problems with attention. She's acting years below what he would expect her to be. And there's definitely an expressive and a receptive language delay.
Okay.
Yes. And but she is amazing at visual. He said to me that she got a puzzle that he himself could not figure out. So he was like, you know, and I really like the guy we're seeing because he's not like super negative. He's very like there's strengths, like there's things we can work with. This is, you know,
Nice.
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Good. Yeah. And so again, we're drawing a picture,
Yeah.
right? We're drawing this version. We're taking a school photo.
Yeah. And then the other thing they said, and I emailed this to Jen, is that like they won't take any of our stuff from the neuropsych. We do all the testing with them.
Mhm.
And then if they do IQ testing, and the guy who did ours was super patient because she has these attention problems, she came out with a normal IQ. Well, what if they're not? Right. And then what if we get a lower IQ and then that gets put in the IEP and then the standards get reduced? And they were saying that's like really hard to fight. Like once
I don't know. And you have to, again, you have to talk to an advocate who knows, what county are you in?
Prince William.
Okay, so who knows Prince William County?
Yeah.
Because that's another data point that you have now, right? You have more data points about, from the
Neuropsych.
from the neuropsych, right? And as far as I know, they can't discount those, right? And you can use those as a second data point. Like it doesn't make any sense that like a licensed psychologist who has, done an official neuropsych evaluation. I mean, in DCPS, they 100% will use private evaluations as well. I mean, they may also choose to test again or test in slightly different, using different, evaluation tools, but that doesn't, it doesn't make sense to
You
me.
may be, we want to get you somebody who knows. the
Yeah,
law,
yeah.
Because you may be gearing for a fight, it sounds like.
I feel like it. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think, listen, the first line of defense is always just kind of calm, squeaky wheel behavior. Like, well, this doesn't seem right. Can you explain this to me again? It
Mhm.
seems like what she needs, it says here what she needs, and you want to do the needs, not benefits from, right? Because the school
Okay.
is only bound to provide what's academically
Okay.
needed.
Okay.
Okay. So it seems like this says what she needs is XYZ. Explain to me again how, just like if you can stay in that like curious, if it doesn't feel good to you, then you ask questions.
Okay.
Okay. And you ask them, and you have such a lovely manner. You're just gonna like, pull your like confused woman act.
I'm really good at that because I work for judges. So
Oh, okay, perfect. So you work for judges?
yeah, I work for judges. I'm a paralegal and I like edit decisions for judges. So when they make a mistake, I never say you made a mistake. I say, I'm really confused. Can you explain this to me? And in explaining it to me, they will figure out that they made a mistake.
Okay, so you're going to use all of these lovely skills and your knowledge of the law. Hello. And
Well,
you're
it's
going to
patent
ask
law,
a
so it doesn't-
judge. What's that?
It's patent law, so it doesn't really
It's patent
apply. Yeah.
But you might ask somebody with some more legal education about this too, to
Okay.
point you somewhere. Like this would be not an inappropriate time to pull some work strings.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't hesitate on that.
Okay.
I would mention like, hey, my daughter, genetic, adopted, pull all that
Mhm.
string stuff out, like, and listen to me, but use it for the
Yeah.
benefit of your daughter.
Yeah.
It's not, do you know anybody who's schooled in education law? Could I have 15 minutes of their time?
Okay.
Whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now's the time. You reach out to all of the people who might be able to help you. You just do information gathering. This is true for anybody who's watching. Ask people for help. Nobody knows what you need until you ask them and tell them what you need. All right, we're going to wrap in a few minutes here. We'll give it another. Anything else coming up here in terms of procedure for the binders or?
Just realized going through though, I'm missing one of his well check summaries.
Oh.
I'm having like the opposite
2020,
thing.
so
Yeah. Oh,
pandemic, we moved, it may be gone.
I was going to say I had the opposite thing where I'm like, oh, going through this, like, oh, I have double of that and I have double of that. I have 2 of every report. Yeah.
Then it's like kind of sad. I'm like, oh, I guess I don't need any of this HSCSN stuff anymore.
All right.
Like officially saying goodbye.
Yeah.
These are my favorite papers when I send them in like this stuff that you have to like unfold.
I did find a great neuropsych guy in Fairfax, though, if anybody ever needs one in Fairfax.
Oh, that's great, actually. Will you pass that on to, because we don't have a good, we have lots of people in Maryland and DC,
Yeah.
and not as many in Virginia. Yeah. This is kind of funny. I found like one of the doubles of the observation reports I have from 2014. And my older son drew all over it. Maybe that's why I was keeping it. I don't really know, but I was like, oh, okay.
So speaking of interesting sensory things, Riley the other day got all of the pencil shavings out of the pencil sharpener, carried them around the house and made art with them.
Oh, that's cool.
It was very creative.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Look, I mean, I have like a whole, this is just like filled with notes from, yeah, that's just going to stay in the,
Is that the communication binder?
yeah,
Oh,
that's going to stay here along with payment records, but
yeah.
yeah. Now, I might also keep, because there's so much stuff, I think, and this is something that may come up for people that have lots and lots of stuff. Like I might keep the therapy notes just in like, I don't necessarily need all the therapy notes in the binder, I think, right from a long time ago. So I'm not gonna keep them, but I'm gonna keep them in my files.
Found his throw up cup program.
It's like the ABA program when he used to throw up.
When your child vomits so much that you have to get him a labeled cup that he brings with him.
Poor thing.
Yeah, it's his reaction to everything when he
Just to
was
throw
really
up.
little. Yeah,
Does he do any polyvagal kind of stuff?
I don't know what that is.
Polyvagal theory is a really interesting theory. Stephen Porges, Porges, is the primary researcher guy on it. They've written a lot. He's written now several books on it. But it has to do with self-regulation. So the vagus nerve is I think it's the 10th cranial nerve, which it has like 3 different branches and it goes like throughout your body. But the vagus nerve is responsible for that fight, flight, or freeze. And if you have an overactive vagus nerve, then things happen to you. And there are things that you can do to improve the resilience of your vagus nerve. And so this polyvagal theory is basically like, hey, vagus nerve is important. You need to do things that strengthen it and that get it functioning better. And I haven't read all about it, but that's next on my list is this polyvagal theory book. So that might be interesting. I think it's a lot of breathing exercises.
Okay.
Yeah, like I think it's yeah, anyway, sort of
Yeah, very
autonomic
cool.
nervous system kind of stuff. So check it out. Does he still throw up?
Unless it's something serious. Like it's been a long, the day before kindergarten, he
Yeah.
threw up, and like stuff like that. But it's not like it used to be like if the building alarm next door went off, he threw up. If the vacuum cleaner turned on, he threw up. Like if my husband and I were gonna go somewhere and he like got upset about, he would throw up.
Yeah.
It
Is
was
he
just like-
alarmed by it or no? Not anymore.
No, and that was super funny. One time I was at the dentist and he was like, I'm gonna throw up. And the dental dentist was like, no, he's fine. And I was like, no, if he says he's gonna throw up, he's gonna throw up. I was like, you need to give it. So then
You need to
brought-
move.
so she brought over like the little, like tray thing that he threw up into it. She was like, oh, wow. I was like, no, he's not like, he was like 4.5, maybe 5. But I was like, if he says it, but it doesn't bother him at all. It's just like this is just how I am. And he's like,
Yeah.
but he knows enough. And now he's old enough that like he can be like, I can ask him like if his eyes, I'm like, are you gonna throw up? And he can say like yes or no and get,
Mhm.
but when he was really little, it was just like there.
Right,
It was
right,
there.
yeah.
So we literally like had this cup like in a stroller everywhere because we never knew what was gonna trigger.
Mhm.
And he was only, he was so little, he was 2. So
Oh, little guy trying to be in his body.
yeah,
Yeah,
sleep training was a nightmare.
nightmare.
We tried to cry it out. No, it's
No.
terrible because he threw up and I tried to follow all the rules and then I walked in and he was like covered in vomit. I was like,
I just finished reading Hunt, Gather, Parent,
oh,
which is a really great book with some faults. It's happens to be written by a white journalist who like profiles a couple of ancient cultures, and so she got written up in Slate magazine for like not anyway. In isolation. It's really great. And she starts off by saying, hey, guess what? All those sleep schedules that people like want to implement and think you should, they were designed by male psychiatrists who were in the care, who had the care of many infants, orphaned infants in hospitals. So like, by the way, this is not a natural way to teach children to sleep. So
that's
really
very interesting.
yeah, like, and so much like the feeding schedules and like all of this stuff, it was developed again by male doctors who were caring for many children at a time and nurses who couldn't manage sort of, on demand anything. And
Yeah.
so, like regimented and had like strong opinions about how like, children should get on a schedule as soon as possible, which is horseshit developmentally. So anyway, really interesting book. Yeah, I read it over the vacation and I was like, oh, I have lots more integration to do, but you'll be hearing about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, we are going to call it here. I'm going to stop the recording. You can go back and give yourself more accountability if you want to listen to this again, or hopefully you've made some progress on your binder.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.